What is up, y'all? Welcome to Last Week on Instagram, where we show you clips from our Instagram where we only have, so much time to make a clip, so much time to make a point, so much space to make a caption that is attractive. And here we can spend time actually diving a little bit deeper into the content with some explanations and questions you may have and answer those things. So let's go into it. All right, so our first video is I run my post schedule Tuesday through Monday. That's why it says yesterday. So we count that as last week. Okay, this post is doing numbers too, huh? Look at that, 700 likes. All right, so a little bit of glide is perfect, especially when you're doing any age group stuff, like your younger swimmers. You need to emphasize the glide part. All right, even if it costs them, some ads, some time ads along the way. Understanding that you want to the importance is the full extension, right? It's not the glide; it's full extension, and you got to think that's maybe a second, 0.9, zero point 0.8 your glide. So you got to emphasize, almost overemphasize or magnify the time space that allows them to really feel what a full extension is. I remember as a young breaststroker going into walls and gliding and just trying to separate my shoulders, try and grow my wrist out and grow my fingers out of their joints and really extend into that wall for those touches. I used to out touch people all the time, as a, excuse me, as a young swimmer when everything's, close and, having those long arms. Y'all don't know this. I was 6'2" at 12, right? 6'4" at 14. So, having that length definitely helps. Not having the strength to use it doesn't. But yeah, we want to overemphasize these glides. Butterfly and backstroke, even breaststroke, we would teach them to dive down, and then you just tighten the amplitude of their dive down. Backstroke is a little different, especially now that they don't have to hold their foot in the air, right? But yeah, the head position too, throwing the head back so their body can bend and dive underwater. So make sure that you're adding that glide. That's the most important piece, not because of the glide, but because it forces the athlete to reach that full extension. All right, let's see what we got next on the docket. Okay, young baller right here. He's probably going to be a very, very fast swimmer. Yeah, this kid's incredible. But anyway, we're looking at over pulling, right? So here I believe that's over pull. I got to catch it the right frame. All right, look how far back her elbows are, and you can see how she stays flat. Now, we would think yeah, that's really good for drag, and it is. But the thing happens, right? So if we look at her cap, you're going to draw a line from her cap to the blue part of the, or her torso, whatever, to the blue part of the lane line reel, right? And it's right here. You see the lane line reel and her body, it stops. Everything stops. It's in the same plane. She doesn't move past the lane line reel. You see right there? We'll talk about the correct way in a second, but watch. Here it comes right here. Okay? So that is a huge issue with breaststroke, right? Now, all this breaststroke technique that is taught, and I say this is where we are the leader in the industry, especially when it comes to breaststroke, is that we don't teach any type of closeness. We want the hands as far away as possible, making as little displacement as possible from full extension. And the reason why is because we want to pop up, right? Now, obviously, a lot of these swimmers are taught push water back, push water back, push water back. But real swimming, when you really get good at it, and most of us never will, because this is stuff that is isolated to the top minds in the sport, whether it's coaches or athletes who naturally figured out, like let's just say they did catch-up drill as a kid, and somehow because they weren't able to just wheel and deal, it forced their body to pull correctly, and now they're all of a sudden a distance per stroke drill has made them into a sprint freestyler. They're going to interpret, oh, you need to be a better sprinter, do catch-up drill. It's not going to work for everybody, right? That guy had a specific motor pattern that allowed him to unlock it through some weird way with the distance per stroke drill. And breaststroke is this stroke where it's everybody does the same motor pattern, and you basically just hope that the kid is talented enough to be fast instead of teaching them how to be fast. So what we like to do, like I said, not displacing the hands, is if we keep the hands in one spot, right? I'm gonna put them right here on this table. If I press down, right, it's a skull, breaststroke pull is a skull. Don't let anybody tell you anything different. If I push down, right, the higher up I get, the closer I come to the camera. And my hips come with me. So my body, just by increasing my height, and then I want to lay flat. And then I'm going to lay flat. Whereas most breaststrokers, they pull back and then forward, back and then forward. Right now, obviously, there's a little bit here, but then they're sliding back. So, because their hips didn't move forward at all. And that's what we see right here with her over pulling, is whatever forward progress she made immediately decelerates when she pushes, but then she's leaning back and just falling right back into her spot, right? Whereas in this second clip, you can see, look at her hands, right? They're out where the blue meets the white. Still where the blue meets the white. Arms are out in front, hands are out in front, so you have much less displacement. She's able to get up higher, not higher, about the same height, but now because the hands didn't move and she's creating the same height, she's pulling her hips forward to that spot, even if it's just a little. Right? And this is why I say this kid's super talented, because this was just our first day working on breaststroke pull. And it's like we had to do a ton of work to get her to this point, like an hour worth of understanding her body in space, her arms in space, proprioception. We talked about that, catching a ball, calculating it just naturally as a human animal. And she has very little adaptation to it, and she was able to make this big of an improvement, right? There she freezes, and then we see no freezing here. All right, so over pulling is a huge issue. Stop doing it. The goal is not to displace your hands. Okay, don't displace your hands, because if your hand doesn't displace, right? In our breaststroke, we try to limit the downwards, the back, side to side. Obviously, you're gonna have an out sweep, but the less displacement you have, the more that means that hand didn't go anywhere, which means it's anchored on something. So any type of motion that happens with a hand that doesn't displace means the body has to displace. So don't pull the hands out of your position, okay? All right, and then we have our final video. Sprint freestylers finishing on their back. Now, a lot of people said that they do this to look at the time. What if the scoreboard's on behind them? They're still going to finish like this. So I get it, what you're saying. Like, they want to see the clock and see the time. It's not incorrect, because they're definitely looking at the clock, but it's not about the clock. Like, they're going to do this finish even if the clock was behind them on the block side. I guess it would be long course. It would be the finishing side. Short course would be the block side. But the reason why is when they swim in, right, we talked about gliding. So initially you would teach your swimmers to emphasize the gliding part, because that's going to make sure that they're reaching full extension. As you get to the more advanced levels of swimming, right, we understand that if I'm here, my hands are furthest away. Shoulder square is closer, and then as I get to flat, my hand gets closer and closer and closer, right? And my chair didn't move at all. And that is a huge difference between here and here, right? And I got super long arms too. So what happens when you're swimming is you're trying to time the finish by rolling over, right? So I'm swimming sprint free, boom, 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 boom. And then on my last stroke, and keep in mind I'm pulling, that's why this is so important, because you would pull, and anytime you're gliding, you're decelerating. So I'm going to pull, reach to the wall, I'm still pulling. Still pulling, still pulling, still pulling, still pulling, still pulling. Hopefully I touched. Still pulling, still pulling, still pulling, still pulling. So you basically pull yourself into a 360 or a 180, sorry, because you finish on your back. You're pulling yourself into a 180 and trying to make sure that you time that 180 to touch the wall and finish on your back. So you're pulling through the whole thing, right? So that way you're eliminating the chance at decelerating. Right now in here, I talk about this. Where is it? There's some funny comments. Y'all exploded. I thought it was funny. Where is it? Okay, well, anyway, somebody said a really good. Someone said you could have worded that better. That's funny. It's kind of funny too, because like I'll have this stuff and somebody won't. Oh wow, I need to make sure I respond to this guy. He wrote it down and did. Oh wait, no, never mind. He didn't comment. It looks better. Nothing's about aesthetics, guys. Okay. I can't find it. But basically someone said something. Oh yeah, I think it's right here actually. Yeah. I said, careful though. I once blew an NCAA championship relay win because I overrolled. Two things. One, I saw the photo of it. And I teach this to people too. When you do your relay starts, do not try and hook your toes over the edge. Don't do it. It's stupid. You have the shin angles because you're stepping forward. You don't need to put your toes on the edge. Okay. I basically, the whole balls of my feet went over the edge of the block. So I like couldn't jump or couldn't be explosive. I could jump. And I remember jumping like, what just happened? Because I hit the water, like my legs hit like flat like this where they should have been through, right? And I'm going 19-0. Probably would have been glorious. I'd have came home like 18-7 touch. We would have won. It would have been sick. And this was the year I won the 200 free. And Texas, we're not known for sprinters. Not known for it. Or back then we weren't until I changed that. But that's another story for another time. And we have one sprinter, right? Jimmy basically carries the torch for the whole team. And we get to NCAAs and like nobody thinks, it's 50 free relay. Nobody thinks we're going to do anything. We qualify first in prelims, right? And I have this photo where I'm just like, let's go. And like, I remember seeing Brett, shout out to Brett Hawk. He was like looking at us like, oh shit, like they're faster than everybody in this meet. And it was like, yeah, we're about to win this. Like, we're going to win this. Like, this was a meet where we were seeded to, like, do really well. Like, not just win national team title, but, like, win a bunch of individual events. Which we did, but we could have done better. But whatever. Anyway, so we get to finals. Like I said, my whole ball of my foot goes over. So I don't have as much momentum going into my swim, right? Which is still fine. I outswim most people the first 25, catch them at the flip. My turns are elite, despite being 6'8". The jump off, elite. Coming back, and I'm just like closing in on everybody, and I over glide. And I remember rolling, and I'm just like reaching. And I'm going to my back, right? So I realized that I'm not going to touch the wall right at this point. I don't. So I try to like control my roll, and I'm just like, I just blew this relay because it was gonna be an out touch. That's the only way. Or let's say this: we got out touched, but my arm length was long enough to like we would have won by like a 1/10 or 2/10, right? It wouldn't have been as close as it looked on video because of my length, right? And I just remember that glide. It just seemed like it took forever. I was just like, no. I remember thinking like, no, like I just blew this relay. Oh my God. I remember finishing and the look on everybody's face, like all the Texas swimmers' faces, was just like, what the fuck just happened? Like, what did you do, Dax? Oh wow, I shot the F-ball. My bad, YouTube algo. But yeah, it was a tragedy. So you be careful. Be careful about your toes. Be careful about overrolling. So Drop in a comment what you think about that. Make sure that you leave a like. Please subscribe to the channel. And go check out the Night Swim podcast. I'll put that in the description below. That is where me and Elvis talk about swimming in a way that you've never heard it before. You know, we talk about it as two, you know, if you like the way that I talk about sports and swimming, that's what we both do over there. And, you know, we got a lot of hot takes. You know, him being, you know, a black swimmer from the Bahamas, me being a black swimmer who grew up not really in the swimmer sphere, but more in the hoop sphere. You know, we have a very unique perspective on swimming. So, you know, go subscribe, give us a like over there, turn those notification bells so that way you're notified whenever we drop a new video. And I'll catch y'all next time. Thanks for hanging out. Peace.